All right. Third and final journal. Um, First one, how did your lesson go relative to the co-planning process? Any surprises? What modifications were needed? How did the students demonstrate understanding? Um, I'm going to answer this as I've done a bunch of lessons, so I'm just going to kind of do this in a general answer, I guess. But so far, overall, I would say planning with person I'm with, we mostly all kind of go off of what um, he does, and I'll modify it from there, or I'll fit in something that I want to do, or I'll fit in something that I need to do. Um, Overall, most of the time, the only surprises are I went too fast, or I went too fast, or went too slow. I need to fit in more time here, and you need to fit less time in here. Um, but most of the time, I'd say students react to it pretty well. Uh, Last one you were at, where we had the different stations, I can use that as an example. They demonstrated their understanding pretty well. They were able to answer all the questions. When I asked them about the questions, they understood the material. They knew what they were doing. They had a general idea of what they were doing. Um, so for that one in particular, went pretty well. Next one. How are your students responding to your management strategies? Give examples. What changes will you make for practice two experience? What impact does co-teaching have on classroom management? Um, I think I've definitely tried to change up a couple of my management strategies. It really depends on each class. Each class is kind of different. Some of them are more rambunctious than others. Um, Most of the time, I definitely see that I'm trying. I need to uh, not react as much um, to what they're doing if they are off task. If that makes sense, that I'm kind of antagonizing, or not antagonizing, but they're reacting to my reaction more and more. So it just kind of makes things worse. So I've realized that I need to kind of work on that. But overall, the students react to the way I do stuff very easily. I try to be kind of down to earth and one on one with them, and I'm not really trying to. I try to connect material with them much as possible. I'm not trying to just just throw stuff at them, don't explain it, and just move on and hope they get it. I do try and get them to connect with the material as much as high schoolers want to connect to 18th century Marxist philosophers. That's just one example. They didn't like that one that much. Um, but I would say just kind of changes that I want to make for the next semester. Just kind of working on those things where I'm trying not to be uh, fall into, I guess, their little traps that they like to set for you, where they antagonize you and that kind of stuff. Um, okay. How are the intervention strategies I use to meet the needs of special needs students working? How effective are coaching strategies meeting the needs for students? How could you better meet their needs? Definitely grown on because of the high number of ELD students. Definitely a lot. What I'm doing is trying to meet them at where they are at. Trying to break down the information to little into bits that they can understand. Luckily, most of those ELD students, they're very good at verbal communication. They understand verbal communication very well. It's really just kind of that written component that they're and them speaking themselves that they're hard on. So a lot of the lecture material and like us discuss other people discussing, they're getting pretty well. So, but I would say the strategies that I've used are just kind of like if I see that they in the material that they turn in, if it's not that good, next time I go in, try to make sure that they know what they're doing, understand the material at least. I try to maybe call on them every now and then, see what they're doing, see if they can explain it. I tried, especially for the really low level ELD, I try not to call on them, even though that isn't really the best because they do need the practice. But especially in my class, the particular low level ELDs, they get really flustered if you ask them in the middle of class, and they're not very. Uh, it doesn't work out as well, but it helps sometimes. For the special needs students, definitely it's a lot of, specifically my class, it's a lot of giving them a little bit less work than the other people. So they have, because usually they're a little bit slower on writing down the information or answering the questions or stuff like that. So either I give them more time, or I have the aide, or I tell the aide, or I tell them, hey, just do like, if they give them three questions, hey, just do these two questions. I just kind of want to look for, like, at least you're trying and you're trying to get that information down. Um, I'd say for how could I be better meet their needs, I definitely want to see if I can maybe alter assignments besides just shortening them, and maybe try and get them to uh, answer it in ways that are more specific to them. It's not necessarily always the easiest way, but it might be more helpful for them in the long run. Okay. So for the 2 day teach, I did do a exoslip quick write. We were on imperialism right now, um, and I had them write about. We were kind of learning about It was an intro thing. We are learning about the basics of European colonialism, specifically in Africa, and them kind of taking over, and different aspects of that, and how they took over and why they took over and stuff. And so I asked him to write a couple, like a short paragraph on uh, what uh, what aspects were present, and some of them weren't the best. Mostly, they probably weren't maybe listening to the lecture. That might be why they weren't the best. That's usually what happens. So the next day, I did do a intro thing where I put up a couple pieces of. There's some really good pictures of propaganda and political cartoons from the time that really they convey kind of more of the aspects of that European colonialism a lot better than any lecture slide I could come up with. And I had them respond to that, and ask them, like, there was one. It has this African guy, and he's being like choked by this European snake, and so it's definitely, you can clearly tell it's like the Europeans are like strangling them, and whatnot. And I think they got that kind of that was conveyed a lot better than the previous one, because they were more able to uh, they could picture it easier because they had that political cartoon, and so I think that really helped. Um, but I would say overall, I tried to come up with a slightly different assignment, kind of a similar quick write kind of thing, but slightly different assignment so that they are exposed to a different prompt. And the last one, since beginning P1, how have you changed as a professional? What changes have you made in your philosophy of teaching? In what ways has co-teaching contributed to your professional development? Um, as you know, I don't use a lot of co-teaching, but I would say definitely me and Matt, we uh, definitely plan a lot. It's mostly in the planning phase. He definitely helps me out, and but it's much more of a I try and do my own thing because I know in the end it's going to be up to me. So I'm trying to practice that. I take the final call on what I want to teach and how I want to teach it, which he's perfectly fine with. And I think overall that's a more important thing because I'm the individual that's supposed to do it. But I'm definitely a lot more comfortable being up front in class, teaching the kids, mostly just because they know me, I know them now. It's a lot easier to talk to them and engage with them. I definitely know which ones are the troublemakers, which ones I need to respond or ask more information from, or check on, and all those kinds of things, check up on, and all those kinds of things. Um, and I definitely think I try and throw questions back to them more, and I try to put the emphasis more on them as much as I can, because a lot of our social science stuff is a lot is it's heavy on the lecture side because we just have so much just information that we gotta throw at them, and so we I try to put or I my philosophy I think is definitely changing where I'm trying to put more of emphasis on the collaborative and social aspects where I try to connect to them as much as possible, and I try to um, connect the what we're learning about to modern day stuff, and most of the time like I'll throw some in tidbits or whatever in the lecture, and I'll ask them like, hey, like we learned about America taking over Hawaii and how Dole, the founder of the Dole Fruit Company, was a huge. He was the first president of Hawaii, and he helped overthrow the monarchy. And they're a big farming area, and a lot of them know the Dole Company because it'll be on like their packaging or whatever. And like, hey, this was something that's in your life, and it's to do with something in history. So definitely connecting that to the real world examples. Um,